In this tutorial, we'll be showing you how to use HTML5, JavaScript, and PHP to render elegant file upload progress bars. Now, due to the fact that we're using HTML5, this application may not work as intended in old versions of browser software. So for now, just make sure you experiment in either Google Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer, the most modern versions of those. And we'll be coding every line of the small script, so there'll be no need for any bulky third-party code libraries or frameworks. This way you'll have a better understanding of how the application works at its core, and it'll be much easier for you to manage and customize it down the road. First, let's take a look at the finished product of the lesson so you can evaluate whether or not your applications might benefit from having file upload progress meters. And this little demo is running live on my server right now, online. So what I'll do right now is browse my computer for a video file and make sure it's one that's over 1 megabyte at least. That way we can see some progress loading into the bar, and it doesn't load so super fast. So I browsed my computer and I chose tomandjerry.mp4, which is a video file that was sitting on my desktop, and it's approximately 2.8 megabytes. Now I'll press upload file. And what I did was I added at the bottom, just for developer purposes, 2 lines here. This first line shows you the exact number, the percentage of how much of the file has uploaded to the server so far. And this bar, this nice green bar here, shows the exact percentage as well. Now down at the very bottom, I put in an extra line that shows how much of the file bytes have loaded in, and the total bytes of the file size. So as the developer, you can see how much of the file has loaded in, exactly how many bytes, and the total amount of bytes. And when the upload is complete, we have the application render out a message that comes back to the Ajax request. So this file is actually being uploaded using Ajax. And this message right here is an echo from PHP. Alright, let's begin with the bare bones of an HTML5 web document. This way we can all see the production of this application from scratch. And mine is named HTML5 file upload form.html. You can name this file whatever you want. This is the file that just houses the form. So first let's go into the body element, and we'll put all of the HTML that we need in place, and then we'll put the JavaScript here in the script element up top. So the first thing in the body is I'll add an H2 heading that says HTML5 file upload progress bar tutorial. Then under that I'm going to open up my form element and make sure I go down a couple of lines and close that form element. Now inside of the opening tag for that form element, we're going to put an ID for that form, and the ID we give it isn't very important at this point, and actually within the whole application we're not even going to reference that ID. But your form might need a name and an ID attribute, so you can go ahead and give it that. Then for the data encoding, we're going to have multi-part form data. So the encoding type will be multi-part form data because we're building a file upload application. And then the method that the form will use is post. We're also going to specify the method post within our Ajax request, because really Ajax is going to be what's uploading the file, and post will be specified for that Ajax request. Okay, now inside of the form we're going to have an input element with a type of file, and this is what gives your user the little browse for file button. It's what allows them to browse their computer and select a file. And we'll give this a name attribute that's equal to something simple like file1. And we'll also give it an ID attribute of the same value. And we'll close that input element and we'll just put a break tag there. That way we have a line break on the page. Now the next input element we want is going to be type of button. And we'll also give it a value attribute. That way we can specify what the text is on the button. We'll just make it say upload file. Now the last thing we need on this button is an on-click event listener. So we'll put in on-click is equal to whatever JavaScript function that we want to fire off. So the name of the JavaScript function that we'll write will be upload file, then open and close parentheses. So this is how we can execute the upload file function on click of this button. So this first input allows the user to browse their computer and select a file, and then this input is simply a button that initiates the upload of that file. And I'm programming this all very basic. You guys would have to customize your whole application to get it working exactly the way you want it. I'm just making it very basic for demonstration purposes. Now we're going to add the new HTML5 progress element. Put in the opening tag and the closing tag for that progress element. Now we'll give this an ID of progress bar. We'll make the starting value 0, and we'll make the max attribute 100. That way it has a range from 0 to 100. And I'm just going to put a style attribute in there to make it a width of whatever I want. So you can customize the width of that progress bar. I'll put it 300 pixels. You can also target some other style properties for that progress element. Now the next thing we're going to do is have those two lines that I had under the bar in the demo of the application. There was a little line that showed us the exact number of how much progress has loaded with a little % symbol, and then there was the line that showed us how many bytes were loaded in and how many total bytes there were for the file size. So let's pop those into place, and the first one is an H3 heading, and that has an ID of status. Then we have a paragraph element with an ID of loaded and total. So status is where we're going to put the actual percentage number for how much is loaded in. But like I said, this is for developer purposes. But if you want to have it in your final application for your end users to see, you can choose to do that. But you can just remove these if you don't want them, because really all you need is the progress bar to show them how much has loaded. But some people like showing them the number with the little % symbol as well. So that's all of the HTML that our application will require for now. Now we can work on the JavaScript portion. Now first I'm going to pop in a function that's simply going to allow me to not use document.getElementById a whole lot of times in my application. Since I don't want to use that over and over and over again, I can just write a small function that returns that, and all I'll have to use is an underscore to get any element by its ID on the page. If you've ever used jQuery before, they'll use a $sign here, and that way in your applications all you have to do is put $, and then refer to the element that you want. But I'm just going to use an underscore, that way nobody gets confused. So all this function does is set up to return the document.getElementById object reference for whatever element that you're targeting on the page. It's simply a way to avoid writing document.getElementById many times in your application. Now the next thing we need in our JavaScript is this upload file function. So let's copy that name of that function that's going to fire off on the on-click event of this upload file button. So we go up into the JavaScript and we type in function upload file, open close parentheses, put an opening curly brace, go down a couple of lines and put in a closing curly brace. Now the first thing we have to do in that upload file function is target the file that is to be uploaded. So we're going to need a variable name, and we'll just name it file, and we'll make that variable equal to document.getElementById, and the ID we want to target is file1 right here. And we're going to access its files array, and the first element in the files array, we can access that by putting a 0 in between square brackets. So you've targeted that file field by its ID, and then you access its files array, the first element in the files array. That basically gives you the object reference for whatever file the person has browsed for, and then you can upload it. Now this next line that I have in place is going to be commented out, but you might want to uncomment the first few times that you run this application, so you can see how you have access to the file name, the file size, and the file type even before the user presses the upload button. So in your JavaScript side of your application, before this file is sent to PHP for upload, you have access to the file's name, size, and type if you need to evaluate those things for your form. But I'll just leave that commented out. You guys might want to uncomment it and let it run the first couple of times that you run your application. And that's just there for developer purposes as well. Now the next variable we'll need is a form data variable, so we'll just name it aptly form data, and that's going to be equal to new form data object instance. And we're establishing that so we can easily send key value pairs of data in the Ajax request to the parsing file. So we'll take that object reference now on the next line, and we're going to .append, run the append method, and we'll append a key value pair. So the name or the key will be file1, and the value will be the next parameter, so we put a comma and then we just refer to the file object reference here. And this form data instance is going to be sent through our Ajax request when we use the send method. So now let's build that Ajax request. We're going to say var Ajax equal to new XML HTTP request, open close parentheses, semicolon. Now, since the whole point of this application is to have a file upload progress bar, we're going to have some event listeners added to this Ajax instance, because we want to listen for the progress event, we want to listen for the complete event when it's done. We're also going to listen for the error event and the abort event. So let's pop those lines into place right now. And you can see we're taking the Ajax object instance and we're adding event listeners to it. And this first event listener is progress, the second one is load, and that's your complete event. So when the whole transaction is complete and the file is finished being uploaded and PHP gives a response back, that's when this load event fires off and complete handler function will execute. During the progress event for this upload, a progress handler function is going to be called every time that there's new progress of upload to the server. So every time more bytes are uploaded to the server, the progress event is going to be called to run, or the progress handler function is going to be called to run by the progress event listener. Now these last two, error and abort, are rarely ever going to happen, and if they do happen, we'll have functions in place ready to take care of that event. These are all straightforward how we're adding the event listeners to the Ajax instance. We simply target the event that we want to listen for, then we put in the name of the function that we want to fire off when that event occurs. So we have to have these functions written in our script, and we're going to do that in just a second. We're going to have 4 functions: progress handler, complete handler, error handler, and abort handler. We're going to write those 4 functions. Then when these events happen to take place, those functions are going to take care of those events. Now you'll notice that the first one, the progress event, has the upload object reference before we add the event listener, and that's just so that we can monitor the progress of the upload while it's uploading. If you remove that .upload reference that we put there, you'll notice that your application might not function correctly. So we put that in place just to make sure that we can evaluate the progress of the upload while it's uploading. Alright, so now the very next thing we need for the Ajax request is to run the open method. Now the open method gets 2 parameters. The first parameter is going to be the method, which is post, and then the next parameter is simply the URL of your parsing file. So I'll name mine file upload parser.php. That's going to be the file that actually moves the uploaded file to the server, and I'll show you that file in just a moment. And the very last line we need within this upload file function is ajax.send method, and this is what actually executes the whole Ajax request. So we're going to send form data. So all we have to do is put in our form data object instance, and it already has the file appended to it right here. So that way the file can be uploaded by PHP. Now before we look at that PHP upload parse file, we're going to need these 4 little functions in place that I was talking about. Now the progress handler is the most important one for this exercise, because that's the one that's going to keep firing off every time the server is updated with new loaded bytes. And we're going to be able to access the event.loaded and event.total. So you'll have how many bytes have loaded so far and the total bytes, and we can compute those 2 numbers to give ourselves a percentage. Okay, let's get this first function, progress handler, written into place. So let's put function progress handler, open close parentheses, opening curly brace, closing curly brace. Now when these events are firing off, we want to snatch up the event reference in the arguments area of this function. So for the argument for this function, we're just going to put event. Now sometimes you might see this written as EVT, or sometimes you might just see it as E, and it doesn't matter any way you want to write it. It can be this if you want. It doesn't even matter. But as long as you're referencing that event, and I'm just going to write out event because that's what it is. But keep in mind that you might see this written as EVT, and remember in ActionScript we used to write just E to reference events. Remember? So whether you see it as E, Whether you see it as EVT or whether you see it fully written as event, it'll work either way like that. We're just scooping up the event reference as an argument through this function. That way we can access the event within the function. Now, first thing we'll do within that function is say document.getElementById, and we're going to target this loaded and total element down at the bottom. And this line is just going to be in for developer purposes, just to show you how much of the file has loaded in so far and how much total bytes. So you'll get the loaded bytes and total bytes shown to you in this paragraph element. But you can remove that if you need to for your finished application. So once we target that paragraph element, we'll target its inner HTML property. We're going to make that equal to the string of uploaded bytes of total bytes. So you'll see how many loaded bytes have progressed and how many total bytes you have. We're also going to use event.loaded and event.total to get the percentage right now. So let's type in var percent is equal to event.loaded divided by event.total. And we're going to multiply that by 100. That way we don't get a decimal value and we get a correct percentage number that we're looking for. It's just basically we're multiplying it by 100 to make sure there's no decimal. We're moving the decimal over 2 places basically. Now we can say document.getElementById of this progress bar, the new HTML5 progress bar, and make its dot value equal to the percent. And if that number ever happens to be a decimal and you want a math.round, you can just put math.round method to run on the percent number. Now we'll say document.getElementById, the status element on the page, which was this little h3 element here. We're going to put the actual percent number and the percent symbol so the user can see it. So we'll say dot inner HTML is equal to, and we'll just take this same number here, the percent, plus the string of the percent symbol and the words uploaded ... please wait. And that's all of the code that we're going to need within our progress handler function. So this function is going to fire off a lot, and that's what gives you the animated effect of the bar growing. So let's take that whole function, press Ctrl C, go down under that one and press Ctrl V. Let's change the name of that to complete handler. So we have function complete handler now. Now we can remove this line from the bottom, and the only line we want to keep in there is the progress bar value. We want to make that 0 after the upload is complete. Now this complete handler function is the function that fires off when PHP echoes back the upload is complete to the Ajax request. So when PHP echoes back that the upload is complete to the Ajax request, or if PHP echoes back some kind of error event, this complete handler will also pick that up. So before we make the progress bar value back to 0, we want to put something in the status.innerHTML. And that is the actual text coming back that is echoed back from the PHP file. And that is target.response text. And if any of you are familiar working with Ajax, you'll know that the target.response text property is how we get the response text back from a parsing file like a PHP script. And that's all there is to the complete handler function. So the complete handler is tied to the load event, and the load event just pretty much means when the operation, the transaction, is fully completed. Now the error and abort functions are going to be very basic. Let's get the error handler here. And for that one I'm just going to write into the status element upload failed. Now we can take that function and then get the abort handler, and that'll be like a cancel listener for if the file upload is canceled. We'll name that function abort handler, and in the status we'll put upload aborted. Now we have all 4 of our event listener functions in place. And that's it for the JavaScript. Now all we need to do is write our file upload parser.php, which is simply going to be a script that uploads, it moves the uploaded file to the server. And then it will echo back to this Ajax request some kind of message. Okay, so you can see file upload parser is made very basic for this demonstration, and you would want to expand it with more error handling and checking of the file size, the type, and to make sure it's there and things like that. The only error handling I put in place was to check and see if the file was browsed for, just to see if it's there before we run the move uploaded file function on it to actually put it where we want it on the server. So the first thing we do in this script is we want some variables that represent the file's name, its temp location in the PHP temp folder, its type, its size, and to see what the error message is for that file upload. We get access to all of those little things by specifying the global files variable, the key or the name of the incoming key value pairs, and we were sending in as key value pair the key of file 1 and then the file data to be uploaded. And we can tap into the little specific details about this file by specifying its array elements, because the file that's coming into this script has an array of data behind it that we can access little parts of. For instance, the error, the size, the type, temp name, and name. So the first thing I'll do is check to see if the file is in the PHP temp folder ready to be moved. If it's not there, then we're going to echo back to Ajax request, error, please browse for a file before clicking the upload button, and we exit this script. If the file is in the PHP temp folder and it's ready to be moved, we just run the move uploaded file function. So all I did was I put if move uploaded file function executes correctly, then we're going to echo back to the Ajax request, file name upload is complete, because at that point everything is successful. Else, if the move uploaded file function does not execute correctly, then we're going to echo back to the Ajax request, move uploaded file function failed. And you guys know how the move uploaded file function works. It takes two parameters. The first parameter is the file to be uploaded where it's residing in the PHP temp folder temporarily before it gets moved. Then the second parameter is your destination, the path, and the name that you want to have for that file. You can name the file whatever you want if you feel like changing the name, or you can just keep the original name that it was uploaded as, which is what we're doing here. Or you can change it, and you can also target any folder in your directory on your website. In your folder system, I'm just targeting a folder called test uploads, and in that folder we're placing the file. Now, like I said, you'd want to put more error handling here, maybe to check the file size, its type, and things like that. This script is made basic just for demonstration purposes. So that's it for file upload parser, and it's very simple. Now back in our upload form, I want to stress to you guys that you don't have to use the progress, the new HTML5 progress bar element. You can animate any graphics, any custom graphics that you want. For instance, if you want to have a canvas element here instead, and you want to use any crazy lines or circles or whatever to show progress of a file upload, you can do that. You can have animation on a canvas element instead of having this progress element here. You can also put a div within a div. So you'll see that many times people traditionally used to make progress bars and gauges using a div within a div. They just make the parent div have a border and a background, then they put an inner div inside of it, and that inner div's width is affected through JavaScript in this progress handler event. So within this progress handler event, you can simply target a div's width and make it grow according to the percent number. So the inner div would be like a growing colorful bar that grows inside of a parent div. In the parent div, you just give it a border, a background, make it look any way you want, and inside it'll have a child div that grows dynamically according to the percent of the file upload. So there's many different ways you can be creative with this, and I just wanted to use the new HTML5 progress element, because that's exactly what it was designed for. It's a new modern thing we have to use on the web, and it was made for exactly this purpose, or things similar to this. But keep in mind that you don't have to use that. You can use any custom graphics that you want. Okay, so that shows you how to use HTML5, JavaScript, and PHP to render elegant file upload progress meters, and all the programming that you need to be able to customize this thing for your future applications. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and if you get a moment, click the like button if you liked it. And if you have any questions or comments related to this material, you can type that in under the video. Bye bye.